Hi everyone, welcome. Let me turn my music down or off. Welcome to In the Paint Studio and welcome to tracibautistaCOLOR. I am thrilled to have you here with me. Please say hi if you're joining me live. We have a lot of people who signed up, and let me just check the chat. I am broadcasting and streaming in both Crowdcast and YouTube. So if you're watching on YouTube live, welcome. I will check YouTube's chat from time to time, but if you want to join us inside my main Crowdcast, you can do that also, and join us in the chat. So I am looking forward to diving in. This is my first public live stream for 2023. So welcome everybody. If you're new, can you drop a 1 in the chat and let me know if you've been here, if this is your first time. And let me see who's here. Hi, Eureka. Lorraine from Ohio. Eureka is in Britain. Nice. Angela and Angela's here from Northern California. Hey, Denise. Sandy, nice to have you here. It's so amazing that I have such a worldwide audience and community. And Sandy's joining us from Australia. Hey, Cheryl. Denise, Michelle, Melissa, welcome. This is your first time here, so thank you so much for joining me. If you are new to my live streams, I usually do a free live stream broadcast. Well, it was once per quarter, but I'm going to try and do them a little bit more regularly. Well, we'll see. That's my intention. But I was painting and kind of cleaning up my studio yesterday, which if you look at my desk, it does not look very, very tidy. But that's just how my desk always is. But I thought, oh, let me just jump on since I haven't done a live in a while. So I've been live for both my play community and also for a couple of workshops that I've taught. So if you took the Procreate pattern workshop or what's the other one I did? Oh, Inspiration Sketchbook, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, and I'm going to share a little bit about today. So I thought that I would share a little bit in my alarm reminding me I needed to start. Let me turn that off. Today, I thought that we would focus on, I'm going to share a little bit of my new Wander tracibautistaCOLOR handcrafted paint collection. This is watercolor, mixed media, and pigment bars. And then I also want to talk a little bit about creative process and give you just a high level and an insight into how I develop my body of work. I'm working on a new body of work, and it's just kind of in the ideation and play phase right now. And also, I want to talk about how that translates into how I develop a collection of paint. So, if this is your first time and you're not familiar or you don't know that I design a seasonal collection of handcrafted mixed media paints and inks, and a lot of them, actually all of them, are based on an idea or theme, and that's also how I start the work that I do when I paint. And so I'm going to show you some samples of some stuff that I've been working on, and also share a little peek into a couple of my sketchbooks, both my digital and my physical sketchbooks. And you'll get to kind of see all the bits and pieces that go into creating a collection, whether it's a body of work of paintings or a series of paintings, or it is a collection of paint. And so I approach both of those very similarly when I develop them. So I will talk a little bit about the process. I'm going to show you some swatches. If you haven't seen, I posted two videos in the last week and a half or so that give you a little peek inside the collection. So normally my paint collections are um, they are done for my subscription, and then I open up a few extra boxes, or mini boxes for a small period of time that you can pre-order. Not every collection is like that, but I would say probably 3/4 of them I do, where if you're not in the subscription, you might be able to snag a portion of the paints and inks. But my quarterly subscription has been sold out for the last 5 years, and I usually open them up in November. And and I'll show you what's in them. I think I might do a little unboxing of maybe my holiday collection coming up. Just you can see my last collection that I sent out and all of the fun goodies that are in them. Because every season they change, and it's a lot of fun to make them and to come up with the ideas behind the collection, and then to actually use the paints and paint with them. So welcome for those of you who have joined us. If you are watching this in the replay, welcome. You can, somebody asked if this is recorded. Yes, all my live events and live streams are recorded. You can watch it right here in Crowdcast, or you can watch the replay on YouTube also on my YouTube channel. So you can come back, and if you have to leave, you can come back at any time. And feel free. Let me show you, for those of you who are new, and if you just need a refresher, this is the desktop. So if you're on the desktop, this is what it's going to look like. And down at the bottom, there's a little ask a question feature down here. So if you have a question, you can click on here and put your question inside here. Sometimes the chat goes by so quickly that I can't see your questions. So if you would like to ask a question, you can drop it in there, and then I will do my best. I will probably answer the questions in different times. So that way I can just keep talking and walking through everything that I want to share. And then if there are questions, I'll weave them in throughout the live stream. So that is where you would ask a question, and everybody looks like you found the chat. So thank you so much for being here. What are you all working on in your studio today? Is anybody painting? Is anybody just watching and soaking in a bunch of inspiration? I would love to know. So if you want to put that in the chat, that would be great. And awesome. And if you just joined us, please say hi. Okay, so I'm going to switch my camera down to my messy studio table, and you will get to see a stack of artwork. I just taught a class all about texture in my play community this last month, and so there's a bunch of stuff on here from that class. But let me switch to my tabletop here, my desk. And I think the lighting looks okay. Let's see. Let me just switch it to my other monitor. Okay, good. I have to check both monitors just because I have one that's darker than the other, and this allows me to see if it's too bright. Excuse me. Okay. So let me move some of these. Some of these I'm going to actually bring back out when I demo. I was talking, I went and dug for these papers. I'm just going to show you these really quick. So I created these back in 2014, and I am working on a new class called the Pigment Journal, and I think that I'm pretty sure that I'm going to include this technique in there. But I was looking through my camera roll, because I was like, I know I created these sometime in like 2014, and I found the original photos, but I didn't take any video. Luckily, I took really good notes on how I did these, but this was, these are all handmade papers, but it's a technique that is not your traditional handmade paper technique. So it creates these beautiful, really textured pieces, which these got stuck together. But they're so much fun. You can use them as collage sheets. You can use them as book covers, journal covers. You can use them for stitching, and they have this like beautiful texture. So I am going to be sharing that. So I went to go dig for all these. That's why they're on here. I went to go dig for all these yesterday, but they're just so, and I can't believe they're almost like 10 years old. They're really, really cool. They're fun to make. And those will be up in one of my upcoming classes. So these are all just some of my texture stuff. Let me move all these out of the way. Yeah, we had a fun class the other day where in my monthly membership, I teach, I guess they're kind of like mini workshop master classes every month. And we do ideation sessions and all that fun stuff. And and I left my other brushes in the I just realized I left my other brushes in my paint making studio. So I'm going to swap out some of the things that I've been doing. If you've been following me on Instagram, you might have seen some of these things. I have been working on a new body of work. This year, I wanted to really dive in and teach myself how to oil paint. So I have been working in both water media and inks and oils and my pigment bars, and also a little bit of acrylic, using like super matte medium and some titanium white paint. But I have been playing with the idea of abstract landscapes, and a lot of times these ideas come from some of my notes and inside of my inspiration sketchbook. So I'm pulling out a couple of my sketchbooks just to do a little fun tour and show you a couple of things. These are swatches from back in 2020. I designed a pigment kit that you could make your own paints. And so these were some of the swatches from that. But the reason I pulled out this journal was because I wanted to show you this one page. This was a collection of paints I designed back in 2020, because this was the Byron Bay collection. And you can start to see some of these ideas forming back then, where I was playing with the idea of abstract landscapes with the watercolors that I had made. And so there's all these little hints, I think, that when you start playing and just practicing inside a journal or inside a sketchbook, those things eventually will come into your artwork. It might not be right away, but it could, take a couple of years. This particular notebook is a journal where I brainstorm a lot of work, but then inside I also swatch out colors. All the color in here is from a tracibautistaCOLOR collection. So just wanted to show you that idea of that abstract landscape. And I love working and making thumbnails. We talk a lot about this in my inspiration sketchbook course and retreat. And I really encourage the play aspect of developing your body of work, and hence the name of my community obviously is play. And so I'm grabbing one more over there. A couple more things I want to share. Let's see. Denise says she is watching and doing some jelly prints. Awesome. Lorraine says, I got out soft pastels and playing around with some abstracted landscapes. Love it. Hey, Wendy from Toronto. And Sandy says she's practicing toning with graphite pencils. Ooh, I love graphite pencils. I have a lot of graphite somewhere on this desk. Okay, so lately, some of the work I've been doing starts kind of with this. This was a 15-minute warm-up exercise, or just little short warm-up exercise. This was a mini workshop I taught inside the play community this month. And we dove into using water media, a little bit of acrylic paint, and various pencils to do these sketches. And so it's something that I talk about a lot inside of the process that I do, is to do these little studies. And while I'm creating these studies, I'm not going to try and replicate them exactly when I work larger. And you'll see some of these marks kind of come in through some of the larger pieces. So there's another video on my YouTube channel also where I shared how I talk through creating some of these abstract landscapes. So then I start to kind of move into little bit larger sheets of paper. So I tore apart a couple of different mixed media. These are Strathmore Mixed Media 400 series, both the toned blue and just regular mixed media paper. And you can start to see how some of these marks from this start to kind of go into these bigger pieces. So some of them maybe get covered with more oil paint later, but a lot of these are my studies. So what I do is then hang them up on my inspiration board, and some of them I might paint over a little bit more, or draw, or use, like I've been doing a lot of oil painting experiments. So they end up becoming all these little play pieces that, I can either take, and I also manipulate them using the iPad, and I'll show you that in a minute too. So I kind of switch back and forth when I'm designing a collection. I'm going to show you in a minute some of the oil painting that I've been doing, but I also wanted to show you how some of this gets practiced inside various sized books. So I love working on multiple pieces at once. And so what happens is that I usually have anywhere from, 5 to 15 pieces that I'll be working on that are various sizes, various substrates, different journals, different canvases. And I just kind of cycle around them as I'm working. And this helps me really focus on not getting stuck on one piece, and then I can kind of walk away and look and take a break when I need to, and then come back to it. But it also gives the pages a chance to dry too while I'm painting, because I work so prolifically and very fast that if I just had one piece, I would have to use a hairdryer, and I just feel like a hairdryer is a waste of time. For me, personally, I don't like using a hairdryer. And so I would rather be painting, and so that's what I do. I've taught this in many of my classes throughout the years, and it's definitely, I encourage, it's a great way to work. I just want to show you, this is if you've never seen that before, it's the blue tone mixed media paper by Strathmore. And this is all handcrafted color. Some of this was my Sunrise Studio, what do you call it? Forever Chasing Sunsets collections. And some of these are actually from my holiday collection. It's layered with colored pencil, and also my pigment bars and some of my pigment stones. So I'm going to do a little demo in a bit to show you some of those fun things. But I thought I'd also show you just a peek into the iPad. How many of you use an iPad for your work? I'd love to know. If you do, tell me one thing you use your iPad for in the chat, if you could. That would be great. Okay, so you're going to see my very unorganized Procreate right now. I've been doing a lot of work on here. Let's just focus this in a little. and I thought I would just show you some of the things that I use it for. There are so many things that you can use Procreate for. And if you've taken my digital canvas class, or if you've just listened in on some of my free content about using the iPad, you'll see how it ends up being such a part of the process. So I've been working on different aspects of the landscape in various paintings throughout the last year, I don't know, or two. And so in here, you'll see I have things that start from where I sketch from photos and do a little bit, use a reference photo and do some really kind of more wild abstract mark making. So if you really zoom in, you get to see all of the lines that and color. Like I'm not trying to make it look perfectly like the photo. I'm using the photo as inspiration. And then there are times when I'll just sketch and do some mark making based on a photo, but I'm looking at it for the lines and shapes, and then I'm just recreating some of those lines and shapes with the brushes and tools right inside of Procreate. Because this is a great way if you don't have all of your supplies out and you kind of want to play with mixed media. Procreate is such a fabulous tool for that. And so I'll do, just some random sketching. So if you were to flip through my regular sketchbooks, this is how they look too. Like some of the pages are very unfinished, and I have like just ideas on here like these. I was playing with different brushes to see what kind of like how I could abstract the photo, this portion of the photo, but using different brushes. And so I'll do these little experiments very quickly inside of Procreate just to do some warm-ups or make marks. And then I also love using it to brainstorm. So one of the things in my inspiration sketchbook framework and exercises that we do is to create a mind map. Not only we do a mind map for yourself, but we do these based on projects too. So it's a great way to kind of brain dump the ideas that you have for a particular body of work or a particular product that you may want to design or create. So I use that both in not only my collection development for my paints and inks, but also for my artwork and also for when I develop products. Little bits of sketching also, little thumbnails. So sometimes it's more line drawing, sometimes it's really, really quick. I wanted it to be very, very abstract looking. Not so much, that still infers that photo, but I'm trying to really figure out the types of marks and things that I want to make. So this one I just focused in on the palm leaves over there and trying to make it with various brushes. So you can also create color palettes. This is one of the things that I love for Procreate is you can take all of the photos that you've taken. So these are all photos I've taken of different landscapes. This is on a plane flying, I think, over Colorado maybe. And this is at the Getty. This is the Ko'olau Mountains in Kaneohe, and then this is in Kailua back here. And so you can easily pull a color palette, and I love doing this because it gives me a starting place, sometimes for my paint collections, but also it gives me a starting place to, if I wanted to mix like oil paints, I could do that. So I took a picture of my oil painting palette, and then pulled some colors from that. And so this is the next body of work that I'm going to show you, just some of the experiments I've been doing with the oil paints. I have in my inspiration sketchbook planners, these really fun project planners that I designed. So you can import them right into Procreate and draw and sketch on them. So there's little templates for you to work through. There's like little calendars. You can take studio notes. So it's one of the things I love, making notes after the day of work that I do. And there's like little calendars in here too. So those are some of the things that are part of my inspiration sketchbook course. And then the last thing I'll show you is collage. And this month coming up in our play community, I'm actually going to do a workshop, mini workshop, all about Procreate collage and how I use it. Not only for, I'm actually designing my book pages in them, but I use it for that. But right now for this particular project, I'm using it to create more abstracted landscapes by like doing digital mashups of a bunch of photos that I've taken. So this is about five different images that I have pulled together to create this one image. So what I'll do is print this out, put it up on my inspiration board, and use it to guide me in some of the colors that I might make, some of the mark making I might make. You know, there's these little crows that are hanging out in that tree. So I love creating these collages to kind of tell the story of the paintings that I want to create. So I want to show you another example of those really quick. And then we'll get to paint. And let me see. Cheryl says, I love my iPad and I use it for practice and brainstorming ideas. I love that. I'm looking for my book pages. Here it is. So here are some of other, just to show you the possibilities of what you can do with Procreate. So just a lot of layers. This is layering probably 3 or 4 different pieces of artwork that I took photos of my artwork. Oh, it's still opening. The file is so large. I was like, why is it? There's a little blue line there. It's taking a long time. There we go. So this has it has a journal page. There's a journal page from one of my journals from like 2003 is in there. So you can take all these photographs of your work and then start to pull them together to create these really interesting photo stories. And let me get out of that layer because it's going to keep doing that. And you can add text, you can write and scribble, and it's just a really fun way to pull together your ideas for your work, whether you use it as kind of like a mood board or inspiration, or using it as like an abstract collage that can help you with your mark making. I don't see the other pages I designed. I'll have to go in. Oops. And see. Well, that's okay. You got to see those two. I printed out a couple of them, but I think I left them up in my front studio. And then you can do all kinds of really, last but not least, I'll show you. I just taught a Procreate pattern class, but you can also design some really fun patterns within Procreate, repeat patterns if you want, from your doodles and drawings. So without using Illustrator or Photoshop, you can do all of that right inside of Procreate, and also creating inspiration and mood boards. So these are projects that I teach both in Procreate Pattern and Digital Canvas. And so really such a great tool to incorporate into your creative process. And so I really encourage you, if you have an iPad and you're not using it yet for your creative practice, I really encourage you to figure out how you can incorporate it, because you could also take photos. Say you're working on a piece of, a couple of paintings, and you want to, you're not sure which way you want to go with the direction of your mark making. You can take a photo of that, bring it right into Procreate, and start painting on it in Procreate, and also cutting it apart and and moving things around just to kind of get a different perspective of your work as you are developing a body of work. So it's such a powerful tool, and I highly encourage you to use it. Kathy says, what a great idea. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, there is so much possibility inside of Procreate. And if you know a couple of other, like Illustrator on the iPad is also really great if you want to do some really fun pattern work. So I take a lot of my mixed media paintings also and then deconstruct them into different motifs, and then I'll turn those into collage or into additional patterns. So that's a little inside my digital inspiration sketchbook. And then I'm going to show you, last but not least, some of the oil painting play that I've been doing. So right now it's very exploratory. I am not an oil painter. I've been painting in acrylics and watercolor for over 25 years. And so my only foray into oil paints was when I was about, and some of you probably heard this story, I was probably like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old. And somehow I think my dad or my mom, somebody took a painting class, an oil painting class. And so I found their oil paints inside. We had a bonus room at that time. And so I found them and I was like, okay, well, you know, this is like in the probably early 80s where I was watching Bob Ross. And so there's a palette knife and oil paints. And I just started painting with a palette knife. I didn't know what I was doing. And it was my only time really that I played with oil paints. And then fast forward, you know, like 25, 30 years, I started diving into mixed media. And so I would use like oil paint sticks, R&F paint, those paint stick things. What are they called? Pigment sticks? Pigment bars? No, pigment. I think theirs are called pigments. Mine are called pigment bars. Theirs are called pigment sticks, I think. But I would use those with the mixed media inside my journals. So that's really the only oil paint kind of thing that I ever did. And so at the end of last year, I had this one Williamsburg set that I got, and it was sitting in my studio for like a year, and I was like, I really want to experiment with that and figure out also how to do this solvent free, because I'm very sensitive to really strong odors. I don't like anything toxic in my studio, so I did a lot of research and started using the, where is it? I have the small. It's by Chelsea Classical Studio, these little guys. Lavender spike oil, but this is actually very strong smelling too. So I can only use this if I have like the doors wide open. And actually if I wear a mask, even though it's non-toxic, this is not turpentine or mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits. So I don't know, does anybody out there paint in oils? You probably could teach me a lot too. But I discovered this book at the library, and I didn't know I just saw the cover. I was like, oh, this sounds interesting because it said materials and safe practices. So it actually has been really, really great because she has something in here that she calls, I forget what she calls it. It's like calcite and marble dust. And I have that in my studio already for paint making. And so instead of using solvents, the woman who wrote this book, she uses this medium where you just take oil, so either walnut or linseed oil, and you mix it with the marble dust, and that becomes your medium, or you just use plain oil. So I've been having a lot of fun. It's definitely a learning curve, trying to figure out what's lean and fat and like everything, how things layer. But I've been really enjoying it, and I've done it where I don't, have a problem with anything as far as the solvents go, because I'm not using anything smelly. The smelliest thing I do have is the lavender brush cleaner by Chelsea Classical, but I use that also very sparingly, and I actually just use the oil to clean off my brushes. So I've learned though that I have to clean the brushes. Like with my acrylic and watercolor, I leave brushes in the water for a very long time, which is terrible for your brushes, I know. But with the oil paints, you have a little bit of time. You can leave them out, but you really do have to clean. So I've learned that I have to actually clean the brushes in a timely fashion so I don't ruin them. So I'll show you a few of the, now that I showed you kind of the ideas behind, you know, developing the collection. So it really starts with that brainstorm and that mind map of just ideas. So this one, if you read, if you click underneath my video, you can go there later, but it says Shop Wander Collection. You can read a little bit about my the background about the collection, and I just write really simple sentences and words that describe the feeling that I want both my paints and the art to convey when somebody looks at them, and the story that I want to tell. So I showed you that in the brainstorm or the mind map in Procreate, and then showed you all of the different thumbnail sketches. And so now I bring it to a little bit, I mean, these are still, some of them are thumbnails small. I haven't worked on large canvas yet for this project because a lot of right now, it's a lot of experimentation. So let me change the lighting again on this. It's to change the lighting every time I switch from my iPad to this. And then let's go back a little so you can see that. Get that, there we go. Okay, so the funny thing is, so I did some of this on Arches oil paper, but some of it I actually also did on the Canson XL sandpaper, which is not oil paper, and I'll show you those experiments. Oh, actually, let me go grab that paper really quick, and while I show you these, and then I'll just open this up so you can kind of see some of the fun things I've been playing with. Hang tight for 1 second. Okay, I'm back. So, I know there is a lot that I'm sharing today. It's probably because I haven't been online for so long, but hopefully you find some of it interesting and helpful. I wanted just to grab this other paper so you could see what I'm talking about. So, I am using both the Arches oil paper. I actually did use some Strathmore acrylic paper too, and then various other papers. So one of them is this Canson dry media paper. It's a sand grain, which I love. It's great for dry media, like for my pigment bars, for my pigment stones, charcoal, graphite. It's awesome for that. But it also works great as like my little studies for my oil painting because, well, it's not the best because obviously it's not made for oil paint, because when you turn it over, you'll see some of the oil, but I'm not really worried about that because these are just kind of my practice papers and ideas. So, you know, I start again with small little abstracts and really playing with the color palettes. Also creating a color palette of the paints that I used, and also wanted to see how my pigment bars mixed in with them, and also some oil pastels. So when you're developing a body of work, I think it's really important to do these exercises so that you can, one, they're great warm-up exercises, but also you get to know the paints that you're working with. I do this also with my watercolors and inks too, and digitally. So these are some of the abstract landscapes. They're all kind of different ways, but you got to start to see some of the marks and the colors that I'm playing with, and some of the ideas start forming. And then I started really getting into this idea of using gold. Williamsburg makes this really cool medium called wax medium. And I love the way that it adds texture to the paintings, but it also adds this beautiful, let's see, I think I have it in here. It has this like beautiful satiny sheen and this texture when you start working with it. I was trying to see if I could find, I have a few more. I think they're in this little section here. These are some of the paintings that I was working on. Oh, here's my printouts. And, you know, for me, it was really trying to push around paint and see. So some of this is, actually, I've been using all Williamsburg oil paints, and then also making my own oil paint with just a little bit of walnut oil or linseed oil and my pigments. Since I make paint, I have all these pigments. So these are a mixture of that. And, oh, here they are. But this is this idea. So it starts from, you know, I'm starting with different things, and then I start playing with these other ideas, and I'm really loving the direction of this particular wax medium. It's the wax medium is made of beeswax, linseed oil, and damar resin, and it just has this beautiful, like, it's matte, kind of satiny matte finish, which I love. And it works beautifully with my pigment bars underneath, and also oil pastels. So I'm really excited to kind of play with that idea as I develop these larger pieces. So the great thing about practicing on this XL paper, this Canson XL paper, is that it's definitely less expensive. I mean, obviously I'm not going to sell these pieces, but because I work so quickly, I needed something that wasn't as expensive as this Arches oil paper. So the ones that I do on Arches oil paper, I know I could, you know, potentially maybe sell the sketches if I wanted to. But for these are just my practice. So if you can find paper, it's a great tip. If you can find paper that's not very expensive, it's a great way to kind of play and explore ideas. So this is also my pigment bars now mixed with the wax medium. And maybe I'll do another fun little video on how that works, because I really love that. The wax medium has no smell, and my pigment bars don't have a smell either. And so it makes this beautiful, this I did this morning, so it's still a bit wet. But it makes this beautiful like matte paint, which I'm really loving. So that's kind of the direction of the work that I've been doing. And then at the same time, I've been developing this new collection of inks and paints, and based on that whole thing. And so now I'm going to dive in and show you some fun, just a fun little demo. I'm not sure what I'm going to make, but just to show you like the possibilities of how you can take all of this mixed media and start creating, you know, some really fun warm-up sketches. So in the videos that I shared this week, you can find these little swatch cards that I made. This is the new, these are some of the colors from the new collection. There is actually a bunch of new gouache colors. I was going to bring the tiles here, but I didn't want to spoil the surprise. So the quarterly subscription box is usually, it's always a surprise. So I didn't want, there's a lot of subscribers I knew who would be watching, so I didn't want to spoil the surprise. You can see a few of the colors right here, but if you ordered also a mini collection, those tiles, they look so cute too. I just finished a bunch of them yesterday, so those will be shipping in the next couple of weeks after they dry. But this is all done on a handmade paper, and gives you an idea of the difference in texture. So if you have a really textured paper, when you use the pigment bars, you get a look that's kind of like this. But if you use something that's a little bit smoother, you get kind of more of a blended look. So a lot more texture shows through, and then if you use it like that. I could probably do a whole class on the pigment bars. I was doing a brainstorm earlier of just ideas for how I could show what the pigment bars do. And there's so many things that you can do with them and how you can use them, because they can be used with both water soluble and oil mediums. They're so versatile and they're really, really fun to play with. So I'm going to do a little bit of painting, but I just wanted to show you those swatches of these are also some of my previous pigment bars on a Canson XL sandpaper. This is the sand grain paper, but in the gray. I think it's called tone gray. And this is one of my favorite journals, which I always paint in, is the Strathmore 500 series mixed media journal. So you'll see, like, I'm trying to test out the pigment bars here, and this was over a super matte medium, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. There's a lot of different like surfaces that you can use the pigment bars with to give them a different look, and also to enhance the way that they pop off the page depending on, you know, what you paint with. You can also seal the wax with a couple of different things. I love to use either Collage Page Matte, which is my glue, or also Golden Super Matte Medium. This is one of my favorites. If you're using it like inside a journal, the Collage Page Matte is awesome for that, because their pages won't stick, the paint won't get onto anything else, and you can still layer over the matte mediums if you want to. But that's just a little peek into some of the work with the pigment bars in here in this particular journal. So let me grab a piece of paper. How's everybody doing? Let's see. Wendy says, please share those ideas for the pigment bars. Yes, I will. I have a list of like, I think 12 things so far. So I was thinking about creating like some shorter little videos for them. Cheryl asked, have you tried water-soluble oil paints? I've only tried one water-soluble oil paint, which was a black. And I used it for printmaking, which I did actually like. But I am really having a lot of fun. I'm trying to find a paper. Oh, here it is. I'm having a lot of fun using the Williamsburg oil paints. I really love them. I'm a golden artist educator, so I was able to get some of the Williamsburg colors with my golden points. And so, and I just love the paints. They're really beautifully, I like the texture of the paints. They're really buttery. Sorry, I had to take a sip of water. Okay, let's do some fun stuff. I don't know where my other journal went. I did this series of sketches in, is this it? Nope. I have I got this, I've been moving my studio around, so all my things are like all over the place. But I got this Stillman and Byrne journal, and I don't know where it's at. But it has really, and I did some really cool paintings in it. Oh, you know where it is? It's up in my paint making studio. That's where it is. Because I was using it to swatch things out. Okay, so let me grab, I like to wear a glove at least on one hand when I'm working with the pigment bars, or even pastels or anything that's like gonna get your hands dirty. I just prefer to work with gloves, and so I encourage you to also. Oh, I forgot, I wanted my other paintbrushes. Okay, I may have to go run to my front studio really quick. And actually, does this have a blank sheet in here? No. Hold on, let me find a blank sheet of paper too. I know I have a pad of paper here that has paper. Ah, here it is. So I did this, actually, I did this as a video, which I probably will share eventually. It was kind of long though. This was using that. These are all of, some of these are my new collection. And I wanted to kind of just show what you could do with them. Okay. Let me see if I have another brush here that I want to use. There's 3 brushes that I moved to my other studio because I was using them to swatch with. I guess I could use this one. Hold on, let me see what other ones I have over here. So I have a few tiles of paints. These are from my holiday collection, and fan brush. I guess I can use this one. Okay, we'll see how this goes. I was trying to see what other, okay, I have these here, so I guess these will work. I think I'll use a mix of the colors that I have sitting here. Let's paint with these 3 for now, and then I might bring these other ones in. Okay. And again, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat there. What I might do is, oh, here it is. I was like, I know my ruler is in here. I think I'm going to make this just a little smaller. So a lot of times what I'll do is I just take a straight edge and then tear the paper. That way I can work on just a smaller piece while we're here. Let's see, is that? Okay, I think it's just the lighting. I'm going to take this and my little tool and some of my watercolors and inks and show you just a little fun play. My water, my cleanup water is a little dirty, obviously, there, but it's fine. So I'm just taking a variety of my watercolors here, and these are gouache. These are actually my new gouache paints, which they work beautifully when they're wet, but they're really made to, and we'll do I'll do some when they're dry. So I'm gonna take a little of that, maybe grab some of, not very much left in there. We'll take a little of this. I think I might have so I am using a plastic blunt nose needle syringe, and I love using this for painting because you can actually do some beautiful line work with it. I'm just using it because I want that really skinny line to kind of flow through here too. But I love using it just to draw with too. Let's turn this over. But I should, oops. You can actually do some beautiful, like, really thin line work with it. When you order a paint collection, this is one of the tools that you get inside of the package. Is a little bonus. But you can see how beautiful that line gets with that. These are like the little syringes that you get if you have a little animal. You have to administer medicine drops to them. That's what they give you. I'm just gonna bring out some of the paint ink with this. So I always try not to waste my paint. So that's why you'll see me like do these other little mark making things on different papers so that I don't just like put my brush in the water and throw away all the paint. Because, you know, we spend so much money on our art supplies. You should get good use out of them. So I'm just taking my brush. This is a 3/8 inch dagger striper by Silver. It's the Ruby Satin line. I love dagger stripers. If you've hung out in any of my classes or free live streams before, you'll know that this is like one of any kind of dagger striper is like my favorite brush, because obviously it's probably because I like to work in florals. So let's let this dry. We'll put that there. And then I'm just gonna bring out some of that ink, and that's the beauty of the inks that I make. Once you put them wet on wet, they just start moving and creating this beautiful texture. Okay, one of the things that I love working with too is I may add in a little super matte medium and some, let me get a little container, and some titanium white paint just to push things around. So I like to use these little guys. I can use this one. This is still stuff on it. So I'll take just a little bit of the super matte medium, which I didn't close this very well last time. So hopefully it doesn't pop out of there. Ooh. Okay. Just gonna pour a little bit on here. I don't need a lot. I don't like to waste stuff, so I end up usually just putting a little bit of paint out onto a tub like this. And then I've got a little bit of titanium white. You can use any kind of titanium white. This is heavy bodied, but if you have high flow, that works great too. Gives you more of like a acrylic ink consistency, and then also just regular fluid acrylics, which that actually might have been good. But so I mix it with the super matte medium because I want that texture, and also if I want to use some of my other handmade, like my pigment bars and my pigment stones, they look really nice over a textured surface. So that's why I love the super matte medium. Has anybody used golden super matte medium before? It's such a great product because it has the texture. If you're familiar with like Liquitex clear gesso with that kind of texture, golden super matte medium has even, I think, a better texture. So you could use something like the clear gesso by Liquitex too, if you have that. So I can push around. So this doesn't have to be white paint. It could be anything. I just prefer using the white because then I can see how it mixes with my paint colors. And I'm using it with water soluble medium usually. So I also put it on these little trays because then it doesn't contaminate all my watercolors. And I'll use acrylic paint brushes. So like if I wanted to paint this on, I have separate brushes that I use for my acrylics versus the watercolors. So none of these will get that to get, I won't use any of these on there. So I'll let this dry before I use the, if I wanted to add more watercolor in there. Let me just scrape some more of this off. So I can leave that and let it sit for a while. I could also, that doesn't have very much color in there. I could also take pencil. This is a art graphite pencil, and just draw through it. Sometimes I'll use like colored pencils. I have some, what do I have over here? Some luminance. I wanted to color with this one, but there's not. I need to sharpen it. Also a Stabilo is great because when you wet it, you get that really dark black line too. So I can like scribble in there with that. A lot of times I might try some of these other ones, but like this one I know is probably gonna be better when everything dries. This is a Prismacolor pencil. So I'll go in with some of my favorite pencils and some other tools when they dry. I could also go in with some of my pigment bars now. They work great on top of water-based medium, on top of acrylic. I'm just gonna draw a little bit with that. And the nice thing is, so like these particular, most of them, these are part of the new Wander collection, but these, when you color one side, you get one color. They're duotone, and then when you color with the other side, you get either a glaze or another color that really works well with them. So while that's drying, I'll do another little landscape inspired piece over here, and then play a little bit with these pigment bars, just so you can see. This is on just mixed media paper, and then some of them have triple color in them depending on how I design them. There's a few, like this one has there's like 2 different greens and a brown in this one. And then you can see that green in there is like so vibrant. So you can use them and color like that. I also love to take your finger, and this is why I wear a glove too, because you can then smooth them out with your finger too and mix the colors that way. You can also blend them with a brush. So like if I take one of my oil painting brushes, let me grab a napkin, and I think I have one of my oil painting brushes. I can just take a brush and also kind of smooth that out too. But I can also take a little bit of oil and play with it like that. So there's a lot of versatility with these too, because you can scrape into them. On top, you can use them on top of oil paint. So like with some of the pieces that I showed earlier. Let's see. Oh, this is drying quite nicely. This was one of my handmade inks. I like how that's drying. This would make a really great pattern, a motif for a pattern. Let me grab one of my oil painting experiments and do a little layering on those. One of these. What else is in here? Oh, this one might be a good one. need a color that's gonna maybe kind of bounce off of this color here. This is really pretty. I love this color. It's like a gray, it's like a gray, yellow gray color. Really, really pretty. Let's see if we do a little of this darker green. So you can also do this work right over acrylic paint. I should actually grab some acrylic too, just so you can see. I just love the butteriness when you work over. You can work with these either wet or dry, with wet or dry oil paints. With acrylics, they're going to be a little bit more like resist. The other thing that is really fun with the pigment bars and oil is oil pastel. Where did I put those oil pastels? Here they are. So these neo pastels, when you layer, we'll do a little of this color here. This was from my holiday collection, that color. But this, and you can see how vibrant and pigmented they are. This is a, what color is this? Is this the white or gray? I think that's the gray, but both of these will work. But I love what it does. Look at how dirty these are. Let's just peel some of those back. I use these with the wet oil paint too, so that's why there's all this color on there. That's enough. But you can mix it right with my pigment bars, and then you get these really pretty mixtures of color. Let's do one with the gray. Do I color something? This. Oh yeah, here. So those are neo pastels with my pigment bars. Let's see. Let me grab an acrylic, something with acrylic, so you can see what it looks like with acrylic. I think I have something here. And you can use them as a resist, which is a lot of fun too. So here's some, I think there's some acrylic on that. Just, I wanted something plain as far as background goes. So you can see this has acrylic and some of my, this has super matte medium. So I decided I wanted to color on here. I really love this. I made these the other day. Let me show you what this looks like off of. It's like this really pretty. There's like 3 variations of this color, I think. There's a little bit darker, peachier, and then there's a lighter kind of glaze. But you can see it's kind of getting blown out in the camera. But there's a really pretty also on here. There's a really pretty this green glaze. There's like a couple of different ones. Let's see. There's also this pink, which is really pretty. See, I don't know if you'll see it on top of this thing. Probably should use a lighter base. These colors are a little similar. Let's see. How about here? Yeah, you can see it on here. Pretty. And in, I think, my last watercolor and wax live stream, you can actually see the replay here in Crowdcast, or you can see it inside of on YouTube. I showed how I use stencils with the pigment bars, So you can definitely do some really fun stenciling techniques with the pigment bars too. There's a blue on here. I'm not really making much on this paper. I'm just swatching it out. Let's go back over here so you can see how some of these colors layer. I love too that you can work on larger areas with these, depending on if you use the side of them, you can really fill in a big space. So if you're working on a larger canvas, it's really a nice option to be able to color in, you know, a big section if you're using the side. So I just use the bottom corner of that. If I use this side, then I get like that really pretty glaze, that green. I love that color. It's so beautiful. It's been so fun to design these because they're all, you never know really what is going to happen, because when I layer these, it's not really a planned thing. I just kind of layer them as I'm creating them, and then they blend. Some of the colors will blend together. And then I could take this and actually add oil paint in here too. So that's also a fun little option. This, I think, is one of my favorite colors from this collection. This is that grayish yellow color. And let's see, there's like a little bit of a violet pinky color in there. And then you can take my watercolors and then also add them in here as like a resist. So you'll see it's like resisting everywhere that I put the pigment bars, because the pigment bars are made of waxes. So anytime the areas that are resist like gets those little beading, you can just kind of like pick it up with the paper towel too. So you can get some really fun, interesting colors and layers with all of these together. So there are a few more sets of the pigment bars, and I am going to be launching a pigment bar subscription in the next couple of months. So I'll be sharing more about that too, where you'll get a set of pigment bars if you join that. My intention with that is to actually develop a series of pigment bars that will be available in my shop at any given time. So I'll have like a standard, kind of like a standard color set that will be available. But if you get the subscription, you get them first before they're released, and then also it will there's some fun little bonuses that's part of that too. So that's a little bit about the pigment bars and some of my inks and some of the watercolors. This is drying really nicely over here. Let's see if I think some of the acrylic is probably still wet, but I can, because I see a little bit of it right there that's a little wet. But this part right here looks a little dry, so I can scribble in there. Maybe add in some of this yellow that I really like. So it's all about, building those layers. I'll probably go back over this again with some other paints and inks and just keep kind of changing it as I go. Where is my pink luminance pencil? I keep finding my... watercolors. The luminance I love because they do work really well and really jump off the backgrounds of ink, watercolor, and even oil. Like some of these, I think I might have used some luminance. Like this is oil paint on here. And so you can see, that's kind of a darker color, but you can actually see how it, because these luminance pencils are oil based. Okay, let me see if we have any questions. For those of you who are here live, what are you working on right now in your work? And I would love to know that. And I'd love to know if you have any particular like challenge when it comes to your artwork. Like what is the biggest challenge for you? If you could drop that in the chat, I'd love to know. This is starting to be interesting. Let's see. I think this will be a lot of fun to kind of experiment and play with. Let me pull this one out and see what happens if I move it this way. I like the colors of that. This is fun with that little green. It's just kind of right there. Maybe add a little bit more of that over here. And then I could take that kind of light green color and spread it out a little bit more. So there are parts on some of these, the ones that have a little bit lighter color, are what I like to call the blender bar parts. So some of them are just plain white. Well, this one's not completely plain white, but you see what I mean? There's a little bit of that clear. So when you use that, it's like it helps blend together colors. But then some of these lighter colors that are on here can also be used in that same way. One of my the oil pastels. Okay, let's see, how are we doing on time? What time did we start this? 2. Okay, good. I think I am done showing everything that I wanted to share. Let me come back on camera. So I hope that you got some good ideas and inspiration. I know I shared a lot, so you may want to like watch the replay, but all of this underneath here that I was using, this is all my tracibautistaCOLOR watercolors. So if you are part of the subscription, or sometimes I release like tiles, this is how I paint with them, because I start when you can't see, but to the right over here I have this huge tile, like this marble tile that's probably 12 by 14, no, probably 15, and that I have a bunch of watercolor, and there's a bunch of stuff sitting on it, so I can't pull it out right now. But there is the, hold on, my phone is making noise. I love this format because you can do a lot of mixing on here. So on this, you'll notice I have some color here because I was mixing, but that's what these are great for, versus like the pans. I still love working with pans too, but when I want to work with bigger brushes, that's why I started designing these tiles, because you can really get some beautiful marks and use larger brushes and have a little place to paint, and mix your colors right on the tile. So that's why I have this format. And so let me just do this last little swatch. Those are some of the mixes of those colors. Let me come back onto the camera and see how everybody's doing. And let me read some of your comments too. Okay. Let's see. Cheryl says, I'm still working on collage. A big challenge for me is I have so many art supplies. I sometimes don't know which ones to use first. LOL. Yes. That can be a challenge. Like if you have a lot of art supplies like I do, so like if you look at my desk, obviously I have all this stuff on here, but there was a few things that I wanted to highlight, so I kind of like put blinders on to everything else that was on my desk. But if you have that challenge, one of the things that I recommend doing is maybe do like a 5 supply challenge. Just grab 5 things and have a space where you only use those 5 things for a piece. It doesn't have to be, a masterpiece. It could be just like you just want to play and make marks with those particular 5 supplies. That way you pare down what you're working with and you're not distracted by everything else. And maybe you set yourself up with that challenge, like maybe you do it for like 5 or 7 days. And if you can have maybe have like a little basket or tray, and then you could set out those 5 different 5 supplies every time. So then you start to, 1, get familiar with your supplies. 2, you're not distracted by all of the other shiny objects that are around. And 3, it just gives you the sense and feeling of play. So when you're doing this, don't really think about like what goes with what, or if this color palette, not trying to really create a color palette. Just grab 5 different things and really see what you can do. And maybe you take those 5 things and your format is like a little 4x4 piece of mixed media paper that you make marks on. So it gives you simple supplies. It gives you a small place to work, so it constrains your time also. So you give yourself maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes just to play and make marks. And then after those 7 days, you'll be so amazed if you hang up all those little tiles, what you can create with that little by challenging yourself to just like choose a minimal amount of supplies. Let's see. Yeah, so Cheryl says, but choosing which things to work with sometimes slows me down. Yeah, so that's why I think like if you just grab 5 things and like just close your eyes and pick them and see what happens. And then, as you start developing your work, obviously you want to think more about and be more mindful and really figure out what you want to work with and the supplies you want to use. But for, if you're stuck like that, I think it's a great exercise just to like grab a few things and play. Sandy says, the confidence to keep trying. This is why I like these live streams, because I can see the approach and hear the chat of artists as they demonstrate. I can write with abandon, but to do art is full of fear. So interesting. I love that you shared that, Sandy. That's so beautiful, because it's so funny. I say that I paint with abandon, and it's something that like for writing for me is it's like I feel like I don't have that abandonment and freedom when I write versus when I paint. And so when I write, I do little mind mapping exercises for me to kind of like get free, like just put stuff on the table. So for when you paint, it could be you do like some doodling exercises or mark making. You choose maybe just a piece of cardboard and a little bit of ink or a black paint, and you just make marks, and you have the freedom to do whatever, scrape it, stamp it. Giving yourself these small little challenges, I think, will help you free up. And And I find that I mentioned earlier too, working on multiple pieces at once. It's something I've done probably my entire career where I work literally on like 15 pieces at once sometimes. Like I have just paper everywhere, I have things up on the wall, and sometimes that could get overwhelming for an artist, but you don't have to do 15. You could do 2 or 3 and, you know, kind of rotate. I think when you do that, it really opens you up. Like you're not concentrating on one piece. You're not overthinking one piece. When you start questioning and you start saying, "Oh, what should I do next?" then you know it's time to move on to something else. And then if you just feel like that in general in your studio and while you're experimenting and playing, I encourage you just to take a break and, you know, go outside, go for a walk, take your kids, or if you have pets, take them for a walk and walk away. And sometimes it's walking away for the rest of the day. Sometimes it could be walking away from your work for a couple of days, or, you know, a longer period of time. But when you start to feel that like fear or that like place where you feel stuck, giving yourself the permission and the grace to just let go will help you not be so overwhelmed with like, what should I do next, or having that fear of like, I'm gonna make a mistake. And also when I pulled out the iPad earlier about how I use it to paint over some of my paintings. So like I could take a picture, and maybe I'll do a live stream like this where, you know, I just take a random painting and show you how you can take and use Procreate to give you that freedom, so you feel like, okay, I won't make a mistake on this on this the physical piece, but I can do all kinds of playful things on my iPad. But you can also treat your physical paintings like that too, because you could layer over this, and then if you don't like it, you either tear it up and use it as collage, or you just paint right over it. So there's lots of ways that if you think about how you write with the Mandan, how could you translate that into giving yourself that same feeling when you paint? And maybe you write about that and give yourself a few fun challenges that will help you kind of open up and be more free. But thank you. I'm glad that you shared that. And I hope that, I know that probably resonates with a lot of people, is that confidence to keep going, and just to have the confidence to play. And that's why I created the play community too. It's really gives you the opportunity to sit for an hour, 45 minutes, and just play, because I think those are when you find those discoveries, when you give yourself that freedom to just experiment. There's no end game. There's, you know, no, yes, you want to create, you know, artwork, but, you know, you're not really thinking about what it's going to be like. You know, this could be a landscape. It could be something else. If I turn it this way, I could turn this into a little book cover, which might be kind of cute, a little journal. So, you know, when I'm painting these things, I right now am not thinking about what the end goal is. It's really for me to make marks and to experiment and to just play with all the supplies that I have, play with the ideas and the mark making that's coming out of my head. So I hope that today gave you lots of really great ideas and inspiration. Cheryl says, good idea. Thanks. I'll try that. Yes. Awesome. So if you want to grab the last couple of boxes, the pre-orders for the Wander collection close tonight. I'm going to try and send out another email. And the replay will be here if you're still with me. Thank you so much. The replay will be right here in Crowdcast. You could also watch it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. And I will be in touch. I have the Inspiration Sketchbook course and retreat coming up in March. I've been planning for this really amazing course workshop experience called the Pigment Journal. So if you are interested in learning how to create your own paints, but also really the journey to create your own specific palette and document it, and then turn all of that those bits and pieces into a beautiful book, then that is coming up in the spring too. So I'm really excited about that. I haven't taught a journal making course in years. So if you're new to me, I'll just show this one last thing, because it was right here. Where did I put it? I for years made handmade journals. Where did I do that thing? It's just like right here. Oh, I know where I put it. Here it is behind me. Here is one. I was showing this to my in a workshop the other day. It's kind of dark. You see that? Why does it look so dark? I think it's just because the cover is dark. This journal is 20 years old. I made this back in 2003. And for years I taught hand binding and how to bind books in a very freestyle. I never took bookbinding, like an actual bookbinding class. I just made up these bindings. So I'll show it really quick and then let you go. But on here, these pages are all, some of you already have seen this, but does anybody want to guess what the pages are made out of? All my longtime people, you know what they're made out of. But these were all dyed with crayons and beeswax. And these pages, like I said, they're over almost 20 years old. This year is 20 years old. This was the first class that I taught. This is my grandpa right here. This is the first class that I taught at a like national mixed media retreat back in 2004. And it's one of my favorite journals that I ever designed. But so I'm looking forward to this new class that I'm going to be teaching, because we're going to make a journal in it. These are my mom and dad, my mommy and daddy. Look at how cute they are. They're so young in that picture. Oh wait, there. It's kind of so. This is not the journal we're making, but I just wanted to show you because it was on my desk. This is, the pages are, most of these are paper towels. If you know my work from Collage Unleashed, you know that I love painting on paper towels. And so these are actually still really, I mean, they're thick and they're great. These were, and they're almost 20 years old. So, and this book has traveled all over the world with me from different workshops. And all of this was painted with crayons and wax on the front and back. There's a lot of beading on the side of here. So I have lots of handmade books that I've made, but I'm looking forward to creating this pigment journal with you all. So I'll be sharing more about that. It's coming up. Yes, so if you want to join me inside of Inspiration Sketchbook, I'm going to be sending out more information about that coming up. It's such a great process and framework that I would love as many people to come through it, because if you're at a point where you really want to create work that is uniquely you, that is your own ideas, your own hand, then that workshop is totally for you. We start where we dive into you, what you love, what your passions are. This is a framework that I've taught for probably like over 20 years. And it is something where we really dive into the things that you love, and then we take all of those things, and through a series of steps and exercises, you create a body of work that is uniquely you. Color palette that's you. We talk a lot about inspiration and ideation, and really how to come up with ideas for your own work. So like Sandy had posted, having that fear and not the freedom to really have the confidence when you're creating art. But with this process, my hope is that you do gain that confidence. I've had people go through the program and create pattern collections, create artwork series, create products. So the approach that I take for making my artwork is the same approach that I take to developing my paint collections, to developing courses and my products. So that whole framework is something that is also in my new book too, that I've been working on for like 3-4 years. So hopefully it'll be finished this year. I've been working on it quite a bit just to get it to where I want the book to be. So that's coming up. My play community is open too, and I'll share more about that. And my latest collection, the Wander collection. So if you click underneath the video, you'll be taken to a page that you can see more about the collection. Let's see if you can see this. I'll show you the last thing I'll show you. So if you click on that, you'll get taken here, and you can actually see more photos of the collection. There's a couple of videos if you missed any of the videos. And then some of my photography. This was in Australia. I think this might have been in Byron Bay, this particular photo. So you can kind of get, I always like, I try to share sneak peeks of what is inspiring the collection and tell a little bit about it, some of the packaging and the way that I put things together. So you can see, I think there's maybe a couple more boxes left, and there are a handful of the pigment bar boxes available too. So have fun watching the replay. And I will let you know when I have another live session coming up. And thank you so much for those of you who have spent your whole afternoon or evening or morning with me. Thank you. And thank you for supporting tracibautistaCOLOR. It's been such a labor of love to design these paint collections. And the Wander collection actually starts shipping in a couple of weeks. If you're ordering the pigment bars or the mini box collection, if you're my subscribers, they start shipping late next week. So thank you, everybody. I'm looking at the last questions. Yeah, Sandy said, I checked about purchasing the bars, but the postage is so expensive to Australia. I know. There, it is. Ever since the postage rates went up here, I had to increase my postage rates to cover them. So I have a couple of customers who they just order a lot. And then I normally, if you are an international customer, because since you pay a little bit more for shipping, I normally put in a couple of extra things inside the box just because to kind of offset that. But yes, I know it does get expensive shipping overseas. So thank you, everybody. It's so great to have you here. And thank you again for joining me this afternoon. Okay, I will see you all soon. Take care. Bye.